listening to Whistleblower Report Radio. Your host, TGMC, Tanya, Grace McDaniel. Trying to find a handle like Puff Daddy without being handled. New to the radio hosting. Last year, I made a bunch of documentaries and radio stations, really for the necessity of the times and to communicate to a misinformed world. Communicating the truth is important. You don't get the truth from TV media. You get a garbled version, and you don't get the truth from celebrities. You don't get the truth from government. So was born Whistleblower Report. I made Whistleblower as a documentary series as well as a radio station. It's important to talk about the things that are not being talked about. So I will start with talking about the introduction of the lawless team game. And I do say lawless because there are many things about the team game that are treason and literally created from a wag the dog. Wag the dog is a term that is used for government as a divergent. Look at what's happening here so that you won't look at what's really happening right here. You know, this wag the dog is a term to say, if I can get your attention, somewhere else. That's why the global movement team game was created. Created literally from corruption and from using somebody. And that person was me. So it's most appropriate that I talk about this because I'm a whistleblower against MK Ultra Voodoo. MK Ultra was a program created in World War II to be able to do mind manipulation. And they sophisticated that program in 1998. And then they further sophisticated that program in the millennial. And, our phones, our ELF, mind control, and radiation cancer-causing towers, extremely low frequencies and extremely high frequencies. That's what ELF is. They are the towers that you see on every block in every city, town, state, everywhere. They're cell towers for your phones, and they do so much more than keeping your phones working. They are cancer-causing radiation towers, and they have the ability to take out anybody in a 40-mile radius, and they have them on every corner. Now, with that said, we live in a technology society, so everybody depends on having their computer in their pocket. Even I do. But with that said, we are living in population control generation. So, along with being a whistleblower against MKUltra and ELF towers and frequency flyers that are also used for mind manipulation. This is a push of one world order. Now, that began in 9/11 when the Twin Towers were taken down. But that was just the beginning. That was a war that never ended. And truly the beginning of what they wanted to create, which was taking the Twin Towers down, was symbolic. And when I say they, I'm talking about the United States government in collaboration with CIA and granted, yes, the Muslim influence of taking down the cell towers. But see, they knew. They had the warnings that this was going to happen. This was a manipulated version. They knew people were going to die. They knew this was going to happen. They wanted this to happen. Take down the cell towers to erect a one world global tower that would ultimately be the one world order, one currency, one religion, under voodoo with no justice or liberty for all, and a population control. Population control. And we're seeing the effects of that now in society with plagues and COVIDs and this and that and the other. And 9/11 really was just their introduction to New World Order. It was literally their communication, the United States communication to the United Nations, that the United States has big enough balls to take down their own people to make a new world order happen. And the global team game movement is literally a perfect storm, if you will, of events that happened from my life and the creating of all of these different corruptors coming in at all of these angles, from government and celebrity to media, because I am a victims of crime survivor, and my abusive ex is retired NFL Raider Lester Hayes. And I am a survivor of rape and incest rape, NFL abuse, domestic violence, and Davis, California police brutality for risking my life for my black ex-boyfriend after reporting Davis police's felon family that were my drug trafficker neighbors who related to racist PD Figueroa that was sued in 2016 from attorney Burris. He sued him for beating a black man. And the Figueroas are related to media in Sacramento. And these media stations, they share the same stations of NBC, CBS, Fox 40, ABC, all of it, with celebrities. So they literally are a network family of sorts in that way, and support each other. Now, along with the spy breach and mind control towers, there is the satellite TV spy breach, where they cast a bunch of what is called NASA starlings in the sky, and they are satellites that spy and surveillance society. This is not necessarily a new idea, although it is a more sophisticated idea. We had satellites in the 80s and celebrities riding the fence of humanity with songs like Sting, Little Black Spot on the Sun Today, talking about environment, corruption, and, explosions on the moon, and creating chaos from war, as well as spy breach. Or the song from the 80s, I am the eye in the sky, looking at you, I can read your mind. I am the maker of rules, dealing with fools, I can read your mind. That was an 80s song. And that's where I come in, skip to the millennial, and the lawless team game created. It wanted to treat me as a Truman show while re-victimizing me and using me, and punishing me for being a whistleblower and creating a game. And while creating a game about the ideas that they put on people and handle them like puppets and robots, but also using the vulnerability of me being victimized and putting voodoo on me and creating a game from my thoughts that they also manipulate, as well as making codes. They make color codes, number codes, and codes referencing the abuses that I've endured. And they also have society seek to chase me in the room of the brick wall metaphor, because they have literally made me a refugee in my own country of the United States. I am an American, and they have made me a refugee, annihilating my rights. Recently, a Capitol employee clerk put an illegal restrainer against my free speech after I reported years of the Capitol employees' hate crimes of gossiping about me and my community and being connected with, local media like KCRA, whose Leticia Ordez is married to DOJ Baeza, and they're friends of the Capitol employee and Good Day Sacramento. And Baeza's relative, David Lara, is on Sacramento's Megan Law, and he is a social worker who participated abusing my stepfather at Davis Convalescent. They abused him, dehydrated him, put a Nazi sweatshirt on him, and beast mode elephant t-shirts and all of that, because I'm multiracial DNA and Jewish DNA, and I'm also white DNA and Native Indian, and etc. I'm American. My ancestors built the United States. And so I'm not for the agendas of socialism that promote BLM for business. And even though I am multiracial, and I'm not for DACA taking more than 50% of government HUD housing and making the population of homelessness amongst Americans an epidemic. So with that being said, and I'll get into that more later, the state capitol employee that works for Assemblymember Curry, who's related to Kamala Harris because Curry's husband is Larry Harris, and they harassed me horrifically for years, making a lawless teen movement because I am creative and sing and write and do poetry and, an assortment of things. They have made a game about it of, kill it, steal it, destroy it, and referencing it as me in the room of the brick wall, so as to punish me for being a whistleblower against all the corruption and also voicing my political views that do not flow with the views of a global team movement game that literally is catapulting society into a one world order. So it's not merely that I speak about, the corruptions that have happened to me, but I'm trying to make the world understand that the team game started because of hate crimes against me. And they had to create this agenda. Let's make conspiracies against her. And, I sang at the Giants in 1998. I sang flawlessly there. They've created conspiracies about me, unfounded, and then kicked out my lawsuits that I've had against the Giants and referenced them as delusional, while allowing society to make hate crimes against me and cover my rapist perpetrators and criminals in my community that are gangbangers and rapists and child rapists and pedos related and connected to the cops in my community, such as felon child rapist Ron Herrera, related to Petey Zuniga. And the Capitol employee put a restrainer against my free speech, stating that I called the Capitol employee a pedophile. SNL made a skit about the Capitol employee, referencing that the Capitol employee was worse than Bill Cosby. So why wasn't a restrainer put against SNL or a lawsuit? I filed a bunch of lawsuits against SNL. They were ignored. My abusive ex is retired NFL Raider Lester Hayes. I've got numerous videos on my Instagram about him, including his phone number and our phone calls documented, all that. So when I talk about things, I provide evidence, I provide proof. In 1998, like I said, they also sophisticated MK Ultra. So when I talk about being a whistleblower, I connect the dots about the things that are happening in society. While the Capitol employee has harassed me, like I said, for years, and is connected to media and has moved to my mother's low-income housing complex, where her manager is related to racist Petey Figueroa, sued from Johnny Burris, a well-known civil rights activist attorney that sued a BART cop for killing Oscar Grant years ago. He was also part of the Celeste Guap trials. Celeste Guap was an underage prostitute whose parents were Oakland Dispatch and pimped their own daughter out to cops in Oakland, all the way from the Bay Area to El Dorado County. And they sued for $60 million, I think. I don't know how much they won on the lawsuit, but I do know that there were a lot of things that were not talked about in that trial, such as a cop and his wife. It was a suicide homicide that occurred because this cop was connected to the Celeste Guap scandal, and that was not talked about on TV media. But it is talked about in a Google reference of, there was a newspaper that wrote about it, and you can Google it and I may post it at some point, but the corruptions that are happening in the world today are just an accumulation of the collapse of society. So while I'm talking about the state capitol employee that is a clerk, I grew up with such being. I was her friend all the way from junior high, high school, all the way and beyond. And so such employee, will not name the employee or talk about her titled position at her work for legal reasons. But I will say that I know details about this person's life, and she made threats against me, and I witnessed her crimes, so I don't slander this person. And she had drug trafficker family that did go to prison in 2006, and knew the Figueroas, connected to them, and the Figueroas related to convicted murderers Enrique and Jesus Campos that killed a Jewish woman and a black teen. And, they're members of the Davis Islamic Center that went national for Jew hating some years ago. And Hassan Minhaj of UC Davis, he's a member of the Davis Islamic Center. Hassan Minhaj, Cam Country, John Party, Despacito writers, Greta Gerwig, Black Panther director, Stereotypes, musicians that made 24 Karat Magic for Bruno Mars, a slew of NorCal and UC Davis, someone would call them minions, have succeeded in getting in the door, as well as cops. Families have gotten into the sports careers, such as UCD, PD, Arias, who I sued along with UC Davis. Arias had stopped me off campus, harassing me, almost breaking my car window, and just, I've endured a lot of hate crimes from cops and my community for a great many years. And I've never had a felony, I've never had a 5150, and I've never been jailed. And I'm a victims of crime survivor and a whistleblower. And their families are seeking to chase my music dreams, such as the Figueroa's families that are related to the Hernandez and Campos and Garcias. And Lester Hayes is connected to them. Because Lester Hayes, whom I dated for 2 years, abusive NFL Raider, he was violent with me, and, or I should say to me, and he is connected to these games, obviously, and he has connections with corrupt policing. He uses his black celebrity privilege to be connected to cops that pride themselves in being mafia. So with that said, and the very fact that the Capitol employee is connected to the Figueroas, a Judge Dan Walk scribbled out information of racist P.D. Figueroa and the Capitol employee on my restrainer against the Capitol employee 2020 CV 1157, as well as the magistrate Claire from Sacramento denying my lawsuits against Davis Police, stating that we were in martial law way back in 2015, and stating that cops have no obligation to protect and serve, Williams versus California, a law that was created to protect cops who refuse to protect children during gun school shootings, was the same law used to illegally deny me of my civil rights lawsuits against police, 213 CV 2653. And my most recent lawsuit is 18-17440, and it refers to all the lawsuits that I have filed, and that's in the Ninth Circuit. And ironically, that lawsuit was originally granted an ADR settlement from San Francisco, and then they sent that case to Sacramento, where they completely deprived me of my constitutional rights of due process, Amendment 14, and consistently kicked my cases out of their court and call me vexatious and or delusional, so that they can maintain a level of corruption of their media and society and the state capitol employees and my community to make hate crimes against me, while perpetuating a lawless team game made from using me and making hate crimes against me. They used me, an illegal experiment of violating my human rights. This is how the game was created. And this is how they are eliminating human rights and democracy of free speech. When a Capitol employee puts an illegal restrainer against a victims of crime survivor of their free speech to be able to report crimes that they've witnessed and report crimes that have happened to them, to limit that person's free speech as punishable, that's illegal. And that is obstruction of justice. So while they are creating New World Order from all of these things, we are seeing the collapse of our government. We are seeing that Americans in America are losing their rights, they're losing their heritage and their history, and they're losing their free speech as punishable. Why is it that BLM was allowed to make violent riots everywhere and blow up cities and businesses and loot millions of dollars and cost communities billions of dollars, and also more than 5 people were killed during BLM riots, and the combination of people that were murdered to the collaboration of blood sacrificing that occurred for the BLM, not just because of black magic voodoo, but also because they were communicating to the black community to go and sacrifice themselves for the cause. So surveillance caught a few black people in communities that were hanging themselves from trees to promote racism and an idea that white people were hanging them from trees, when a surveillance camera caught these black people hanging themselves. And what's so disturbing about that is that it's horrific for those black people that don't understand that that wasn't necessary, and their families and their friends that don't understand that that pain could have been avoided. Additionally, the Black and Brown Coalition is deceived, not realizing that DACA has stolen affirmative action from the black community when a Robert Rivas goes on television, and the Capitol employee used to work for Robert Rivas, and he brags about Latinos taking 40% of the population because during the Trump administration, 70 to 100,000 Latinos were rushing the borders, causing literally a global collapse, because whenever you collapse the economy, you're affecting the world if you're collapsing the United States economy. And I will get into that more in the next segment of this whistleblower report. But I just wanted to talk about that for a minute, because the homeless population of black and white Americans having their resources taken from them from DACA and illegal immigrants that have rushed the borders. HUD housing is completely monopolized from the Latino community. More than 50% of the resources of HUD housing, EBT food stamps, and Medi-Cal is given to the Latino community. Immigrants are now getting, undocumented immigrants are now getting the portion of the communities